Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 220th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me CEO and founding partner at Trenches Sports and Entertainment and creator and host of the Biz Dads podcast, Brad Olecki. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great, Katie. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Well, congratulations on 220 episodes. I don't know if Biz Dads will ever make it that far. No, people will stop listening eventually, but excited to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure it will take off and you guys will hit that milestone of 220 before you know it. And I'm excited to join that journey with you guys, Brad.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having me. What a cool concept for a podcast. I think a group of people who are so tight, like former student athletes. This is a great resource. I'm excited to be here.
Well, really, thank you so much. That really does mean a lot. And I know your story is going to resonate with so many people tuning in. And so, Brad, to kind of get that started, getting to know your own background a little bit, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
I grew up just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in a town called Ackworth, a suburb not too far outside of Atlanta, and moved down here from Ohio and by way of New Jersey. So I'm a Midwestern kid, and I grew up in the South. So I have fully adopted the South here.
Yep.
But we moved down here, and I moved down here in third grade. I was instantly engaged in sports. My father was a former student athlete at the University of Maryland, and for us, sports was everything. I grew up in a household of two boys, a mother who was a saint, and my father who pushed us to be the best athletes that we could be. And we truly believed that our foundation and who we are now was through that development. My brother is a former college football coach and former college football student athlete as well. So I married a college athlete. So we're fully ingrained. We're raising our boys the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's something that kind of takes hold of you at such a young age, and one, to have it fostered by your own parents, but then two, your brothers, and then your significant other who you choose to spend your life with, and then being able to continue that legacy on. It's such a cool thing. And then two, in your own professional career, continuing on down that path, utilizing all these little pieces that you learn as an athlete, just to continue on in whatever path that you choose to go down. And so, Brad, for you, at that young age, was there a specific sport that really took hold of you that you wanted to go all in on, or did you really just go for all manner of sports?
Well, back then, the specialization thing really didn't exist, and we really focused on trying to be as engaged in as many different sports as possible, even if we weren't any good at them, i.e. basketball for me. We, early on, we started playing soccer. Youth soccer was a big foundation for us. I actually credit youth soccer with such an important part of my development as an athlete, which got me to where I was in college, was my footwork and the position that I played. But youth soccer, baseball, we wrestled, track and field. Football was my sport, right? Football, baseball, track and field, all of them I loved. But football, having a dad who played college football, had a cup of coffee in the NFL with a couple teams. Football was what we knew we were built to be. And I was not going to be a wide receiver or a running back. I was built to push people around. So they put me in the trenches, foreshadowing for the why we named the business Trenches.
Yeah.
And football was, where our heart was. It still is to this day. I just think it's the greatest team sport that you can play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having that love and admiration just kind of planted within you, and then having it grow and you developing your own love and passion for this sport. And so then, Brad, as you started to come up on high school and looking forward, did then you develop these new aspirations of, I want to go to college and play football as well, or did you see something else for you coming out of your college career?
No, football was pretty much it for me.
Yeah.
I think it was, where was I going to play? What, how big was I going to be? I was a kid who grew, going into my freshman year. I was a pretty good sized kid and got to that 6'2" mark, but didn't go beyond it as a senior. So I was what they called a tweener in the football space. Too small for Division I, kind of, decent enough to play Division I AA, or maybe a backup in the Division I back then. Now it's FBS now. But, football was it. It was what we talked about. It was what we dreamed about. My brother and I both. My dad was right there with us, pushing us all along the way. So it was always going to be football. I think we were predetermined for that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, it makes sense, that natural next step of just being able to continue on with this love and this dream that you had. And so then, Brad, as you started to come up on college, did you start to narrow it down? Did you already know, I want to go to this school specifically? Or were you just kind of casting a wider net to see where you could go to play football?
It's an interesting story, because recruiting, I think, has evolved so much. I'm older, I'm 41. And when we were coming up, we relied a lot on our coach. Luckily, my coach had some great relationships. I fell into that, again, that preferred walk-on to the Division I, 1A teams. And being in the South, I had a lot of the Clemsons before they were the Clemsons of today, the Ole Misses, the South Carolinas. And then I had a lot of the military schools was really where I thought I was going to end up, in the academies and 1AA, larger 1AA programs. And I went through this process knowing that I wanted to be as big of a fish in as small of a pond as I could, right? I didn't want to go and not play. I wanted to just get on the field. So 1AA ended up being the perfect fit for me. Lots of crazy stories on how I ended up at Morehead State, but it ended up being, a godsend. It was absolutely the best place for me to play. The coaches that influenced me there, the friends that are still, irreplaceable in my life today. It was a crazy journey, but I'm really glad I ended up where I was. And I'll tell you the funniest story. When I went on my official visit to the school I ended up going to, Morehead State, I went back to my dad at the hotel and I said, I'm never coming to school here. And we got in the car the next morning, had breakfast with the head coach, then took off. In my mind, I was never going to school there. And a couple things happened along the way. I had committed to another school. I was going to that school. They changed head coaches, and I had a decision to make. And you know what? It was the right time, the right place. The head coach at Morehead State at the time called me just to check in to see how I was doing. That was so important to me. And I ended up committing and going to Morehead because of that.
And I think you really hit on something key. It's that kind of, stars aligning, right place, right time. But then it's before that even happens, it's you taking those steps to ensure those doors open. So you putting yourself in a position to explore Morehead College and see if that was a place that or Morehead State, and see if that was a place you wanted to go. And so even though you felt like, okay, I have everything lined up, I'm going to this school, and then things change where the head coach they changed the head coach, but then because you developed that relationship with the other coach, then you were able to kind of walk through that door. So I think it's kind of a testament to you can set all these goals, and that's the athlete, and you're like, I have this exact goal in mind. This is exactly where I'm going to go. But then you also have to be able to kind of let go of that control and be open to walking through any of those doors of opportunity that are presented to you, because you never know which one is actually going to be the right one for you to walk through.
It's like they say, man plans and God laughs. Because,
yep.
I was destined to go to the Morehead State to live out my eligibility in Appalachia. And again, I wouldn't change it for the world. I really wouldn't. And I had the opportunity to take my family up to Morehead, and my wife, who had, been at a major Division I university in a big college town, got to see that. It was just a special moment for us, for my kids to watch the game where I had played. Morehead is such a special place to me, because it's where I ended up, almost accidentally. I don't want to call it a last resort, but it's where I ended up. And it was late in the game, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love that. It's just, exactly where you were. It maybe was not the journey you intended to walk, or the one you thought you would, but it was exactly the right one for you. And so, Brad, kind of going back to when you initially made that transition from high school to college first, envisioning going one path, but then ended up going to another university entirely. For you, what was that transition like from high school to college? One, going, moving away from your family, and then two, just navigating of what academics were like, what the new athletic journey was like for you.
Well, where I went to school is, 6 hours, almost 7 hours away from my house. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I could pick up and come home every weekend.
Right.
But that first, camp, because as a football player, you go right up and you're there 2 weeks early and students aren't on campus yet, and you start football camp. For me, probably the most pivotal 3 to 4 weeks of my entire life, because I got up there, I was competing for a starting position and got hurt and had a back injury that in my second week there, school had just started, had to go through all of these tests and see all these doctors. My father was driving up from Atlanta, that 7 hours, for every appointment. And I ended up having to take a medical red shirt my freshman year. And the doctor at the time had told me, he said, you need to quit playing football. Here, trying to compete, I am here, trying to meet people, because I didn't know anybody when I went up there. And I was determined to get back out there. So I had to sit out that season, made some great friends, had incredible teammates that helped me along the way, rehab, a great, was able to get back on the field in the spring, and struggled with that back pain throughout my entire career. But it was overcoming that adversity that's how I answered every interview question, not to get into my professional career just yet, but literally that is the moment in my life that I will credit for, the grit that I apply to my life, to my parenting, to my business. It was that experience, being 7 hours away from home with in a small town, totally different from the town I grew up in, with a bunch of people I didn't know, not having any friends to rely on, not having the high school girlfriend to go with me or anything like that. It was, this is it. You're stuck here, and you either are going to finish your school here, you're going to, go back home. What are you going to do? And I decided this is my decision, and this is what I'm going to do. So I rehabbed and got back out there and had, again, the next amazing 4 years, 4 seasons of my life. And I had a great career along the way. It was the defining moment.
Man, and having a turning point like that, I mean, one, so early on, being so young, having just come out of high school, then getting injured, and then having to have that, being kind of stranded and thinking, okay, this is me, I have to figure this out. I mean, navigating that turning point for yourself. So what happens, in your mindset that helped you kind of really overcome that? So of course you had to make that decision for yourself, but then for you, do you remember specific things going through your mind, or specific, mental practices that you started to implement that really helped you navigate that really challenging obstacle?
Well, look, I think so many people have stories just like that, and I don't think mine's any different than theirs, or I'm any different from them and how they've overcome it. But for me, the support system that I had with my family, my parents, was incredible. The coaches that were there that helped me understand that if I was able to get back on the field, they had seen enough in me that they were confident I could play and be a big part of the team. And, for me, that upbringing that I talked about was a never quit mentality. Mm-hmm. That was drilled in from my mother, who's probably the toughest person I've ever been around, and has faced all kinds of challenges in her life. I was not going to quit on my commitment to be there and my dream to play college football. And I don't want to get all, sappy and philosophical, but literally that grit and that mentality of not quitting is what got me through. Great friends that I made along the way helped. That parental support, those coaches, all of those things. But to your point, if you're not committed to, overcoming the adversity and being mentally tough, there was nothing you could do to fix that injury. There was nothing I was going to be able to do to survive in this small little town so far away from home. And it was, it was the decision that I made and all of those other factors that you can't pull one thing out and say it was more important than the other. But overcoming the mental adversity, overcoming that adversity and deciding that I was going to do it, and then having the support system that continued to amplify that was, again, it was everything I needed, the perfect recipe for me to stay there, to rehab and be successful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So it's like you said, it's you making that decision, actively deciding, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stay mentally strong. This is not going to break me. But then two, on the days where maybe it feels like it is going to break you, ensuring that you have the right people around you to push you and bolster you up and remind you why you started, reminding you that, you need to finish because this is a goal that you have. This is the path that you're on. And it's reminding you that it's something that you've decided you want to achieve. And so, Brad, having that incredible kind of turn in your freshman year and then looking forward through the rest of your collegiate career, did you start to, you said even coming up, I guess, on the end of that career, did you see yourself going on or trying to continue your football career to go professional? Or did you see it kind of coming to a close as your college career came to a close?
For me, I had a lot of doctors tell me all along the way that, I shouldn't have been playing, like I said. Mm-hmm. And I had a great medical staff who got me ready to play. I had my junior and senior years, having been the team captain and All-American recognition and a lot of different things in the 1AA level. I loved my career. And, a couple invites came to combines. My body was at a point where I had made up my mind that I was going to go into the professional environment. I was not going to play at the next level. I wasn't going to go down the road of, back then there was a lot of arena football and those kind of things, a lot of options that we could play in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I wasn't going to go down that road. For me, I knew I wanted to get into business. I knew kind of the path I wanted to take. And I had made the decision that my career through college and the success that I had there was accomplishing and fulfilling my goal and my dream. And that was enough.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful thing about when you come to that decision on your own. It's you had this injury, but it was you coming to the conclusion, I have now new goals. I have set my sights on something other than just football. And I want to start to kind of curate my business acumen and go after that. And so for you, Brad, then in tandem with your football career in college, what was it that you were studying and what did you see as your next step professionally outside of football?
Well, first thing is I have to give some credit to some incredible coaches and helpers along the way who made me focus and got me out of school academically because I wasn't the greatest student. Yeah. Not that I wasn't intelligent, but I wasn't the greatest student. And those people helped me, because I was lucky enough. I went into college knowing exactly what I wanted to major in. I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I wanted to be in marketing. So I was able to get on that path early and finalize that path. In the end of my eligibility, I graduated that December. And, for me, marketing and the business management side, it was what I was so passionate about. I knew that what I wanted to do and what was going to be the path for me may not have perfectly aligned because I knew I wanted to be in the sports world. I knew that back then there were no sports marketing degrees. There was nothing like that. It was you went to business and you got a business degree and a emphasis in marketing, and that was it. So I went down that path and I got out luckily, again, because of the help of some great people, and was off to the races trying to figure out what that next step in my life was.
And I think, again, that's key, having the people around you that are going to support you. And so having specifically your football coaches kind of pull that out of you and saying, okay, football is not everything. You do have to have this other side of your life to go into, knowing that you have that, whatever's going to come next, that next step. And so then Brad, coming up on graduation, like you said, finishing up in December and then looking forward, even though you did make that intentional decision of, I'm not going to continue my football career. I'm ready to move on in my professional career. How difficult, or was it difficult for you to still navigate that transition because football had been such a key part of your life for so long? How difficult was it for you to just say goodbye and move and just continue to move forward?
I think it was difficult only in the sense that I missed the competition and I missed the teammates. We had a very special group of guys that that I love to this day, that I got to play with, that I got to be in the locker room with. And missing that competition was the hardest thing for me. I had already made up my mind that I was going to go into business. My offensive coordinator and offensive line coach at the time, again, were motivating me, knowing what I needed to do. And we talked about it, and I knew that I wasn't going to go play at the next level. I knew that in my mind, that physically I wasn't going to be taking that next step. And that was okay. I was okay with that. But I found competition in other places. That's how I was able to transition. Mm-hmm. I found competition in everything from the job search to winning job offers, being better than everybody else that I was interviewing against. I found competition in, rec sports and other friends, learning other sports. There's several different things that I did that made me, that scratched that itch, if you will. Plus I had a brother who was still playing. I got a chance to watch him, got a chance to watch a lot of the guys that I had played with continue. So for me, it was an easy transition from the sport, but the competition and the camaraderie is what I missed the most. And I was able to find the competition in other ways. I made myself find other places, things that were going to move me forward in the right direction, mm-hmm. not just competing to compete, but competing for a purpose. Mm-hmm. And that was what I was able to find and what I applied to the job search and my career path.
Mm-hmm. That's so important because like you said, it's not that all of those facets that go into your athletic career go away as soon as you move forward, as soon as your organized athletic career comes to a close. It's that competitive drive, that goal-orientedness, everything that you learned as an athlete is directly transferable into whatever it is you choose to do next. You just have to reframe your mind and look at things in that way. And so for you, like you said, from the job search to everything that you did, that was competing for you. And so being able to apply that to literally every area that you walked forward into. And so then, Brad, for you, coming out of college and then actively going into the job search, what was the first job that you ended up getting, and how did that really set you on this path that you're on today, and ultimately finding trenches?
Yeah, so let me back up real quick and say one thing. I think student athletes need to prepare themselves for that next step by understanding how important the life lessons and the influence those coaches are going to have. If all athletes can take the understanding that what I'm doing right now, while I'm a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old person, and I'm not loving it because there's somebody yelling at me, or I'm having to do this study hall or whatever it is. This is hindsight for me, right? Those were the things that were the most influential and most important crafting moments of my life. And I accredit everything that I have done from a professional standpoint, and even as a father and a husband, I credit those things. I credit that time in my life, that 4.5 short years, that time with my family, that time becoming an adult, that time with those friends and those coaches. You have to know while you're in the moment that those things are going to have an impact. I joke with people that I look at my kids, my 2 boys. I have 2 boys that are the same age apart that my brother and I are. So when my mother laughs at me because she knows what's coming my way, I also look at them and I say, wow, the things that make them difficult toddlers or young boys to handle are going to make them incredible adults. And I try to make that transition. I try to make that understanding of how do I cultivate that to be a great adult, to be a great, person in the community. And I think athletes need to understand. A lot of athletes know that they're role models, especially at the higher levels. They know they're being watched and they know they're part of the media and all of that. But at any level, whether you're playing, FBS football, or FBS track and field, all the way down to, or Division 1A track and field, all the way down to, Division 3 or NAIA, it doesn't matter. The things that you're learning as a student athlete will help propel you into your professional career. And I was able to learn that a little later into my career. So to answer your question, for me, I started, my father, again, who is such an influential part of my life, worked in the industrial sales industry. And I knew that was probably where I was going to end up. but I had this passion for getting into the sports business. And growing up, the 96 Olympics were in Atlanta. I had the chance to watch an amazing leader, Billy Payne, come up with that idea and bring the Olympics to Atlanta and win the ultimate battle over all these major cities. And, Atlanta was nowhere on the world map at that point. And that sparked this interest in me in sports marketing. I watched what the city had done, and I got to volunteer as a high school student athlete at the Olympic Games, and I was there when the Olympic bomb went off, and I had all of these amazing, moments around that. And then through things my father was involved in with the Peach Bowl, which is the college football bowl game in Atlanta, which was a third-tier bowl game at that point, I became very interested in that business. So when I graduated, I went into the normal path that I thought I was going to take. And the story I tell people all the time is I got a job offer or got an interview, I should say, with 3M, one of the biggest companies in the world. I think my last name probably, got me at least in the door. I'm sitting there as a 23-year-old kid at the time, up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it's a group interview. There's 8 people there. I'm one of 8, and it's an all-day interview. There are 12 interviews and a group lunch interview with all 8 of us in this group. And we go through and we do this whole thing, and I had never sold anything in my life. I get out of there, and I thought I had done a great job, as good as I could have expected, because everybody there was 15 years older and had that much more experience than me. So I left there just thinking, wow, I'm glad, again, that competitiveness kicked in. I wanted to win, but I also wanted to make sure I was doing things the right way. Out of all of those people with all of those experiences, I had sparked interest in myself, even without the experience. And these people who were hiring for the job said, we like this kid. I was lucky enough that one of them was a college athlete. One of them was in my fraternity. So I had things to talk about with these people as opposed to just answering questions. It was conversational. So I come back to my dad. I'm telling him I got this job offer. I can move to San Jose or Pittsburgh or Dallas. And he's like, this is unbelievable. Great salary to come right out of college, company car, expense account, all this stuff. I said, Dad, I'm going to turn the job down. I'm going to take this $1,000 a month internship with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl at the time. And he said, you're going to do what? I said, I want to get into sports. This is what I want to do. And I don't remember if he didn't talk to me for a couple periods. At the end of the day, he knows that it was the right decision for me. He knows where my passion was. But man, at that time, it was the first 5 years of my life, I was a real idiot for taking that job because the sports world doesn't pay a whole heck of a lot, especially when you're entry level. So I worked for some amazing people at the bowl. They helped me understand the different parts of the business. And, there's great leadership there. And I was able to then take that into, a 20-year career that I would never change for the world. And had I gone down the path of 3M, I probably would have been the best, toilet paper and janitorial and sanitation supplies seller on, in North America. That would have been my goal.
Yeah.
But for me, that wasn't my path. My path was sports marketing, and that led me to where I am today.
And I think that really is such a good kind of a good way to look at things, because you could have taken the job that would have been really secure and paid you all this money, and you saw a clear vision of a path that you could walk with 3M, with a big company. But then 2, knowing where your heart lied and where your passion was, and knowing, okay, well, I love sports, I love marketing, I want to do something in this realm, and then having the opportunity to take a low-paying internship, but also knowing that the sky was the limit because you didn't know where you could go with that. And so just wanting to be willing to learn. And I think that's, too, I mean, of course, some people, you're not offered that luxury of being able to take, you have to, choose what is right for you at the time, but being willing and being humble enough to say, no, I really do want to pursue this path, even if it means taking an $1,000 a month internship to start, because I know I can work my way up. Like, just being an athlete is, that if you walk onto a football team, but you have a goal of being a starter one day, you don't just walk on, and from that first day, you are able to be a starting quarterback. It's, you have to put in the work and prove yourself. And so, I think that's really really is a testament of how athletics can be a direct reflection of what you do after college. So when you graduate, that work and that grind that you have to put in order to really take those next steps and pursue the passions that are on your heart.
And absolutely right. And you know what? Don't be afraid to find a coach. If you're going to take a risk, or you're going to take a flyer, or you're going to follow your heart, find the coaches that are going to, the teammates that are going to help you along. Too many people try to do it alone. And I think what I was able to find were a bunch of coaches that helped me early in my career, and I listened. I paid attention. I was a sponge. I literally tried to absorb everything that they were telling me. Nobody wants to be coached, right? At the end of the day, none of us, even as athletes, we don't always agree with our coaches. But you have to flip the switch to understand that it's time to learn that I don't know everything that, and again, this is hindsight talking. Brad at 23 probably would have had a totally different response. But I'm telling you, that was what I was able to do. I was able to find coaches. And I probably didn't even at the time know they were coaches, but I was being coachable. And they saw that in me, and they took advantage of it, and they were great resources and great mentors along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's being, again, having that humility and listening to people who have been there and they have these experiences, so that you kind of cling on to that and you listen to what they have to say, because they do have those authentic, real experiences that you can learn from. You can take those bits and pieces from them. And so, Brad, for you, I mean, getting your foot in the door, having that first internship, what did those, I guess, over the time that you had that internship, what did you see start to take shape as those next steps started to present themselves? How did that eventually lead to where you are today?
Well, I loved the deal making that came along with tying brands to sports. And that's what identified itself, seeing how the business world allowed me to keep one foot in what I call the normal economy, and sports world, which allowed me to keep another foot in the la la land economy. Those two things appear cool right on the outside. That's why everybody wants to work in sports and sports and entertainment at this point, because it's cool. But I found that for me, the business aspect, the deal making, is what I really enjoy doing. So when I was at the Bowl, I got a chance to be a part of some really great things. My time there ended, and I went off to work for one of probably the best entrepreneurs in all of sports, Bill Battle, the famous Bill Battle, the legendary Bill Battle from Alabama, and his company CLC. And I was there for a very short while, and I quickly realized that it was not the right place for me. And I still to this day joke with the people that were my bosses at the time, because I was there for such a short time. But I had these job offers that came from, promotion managers and athletic departments. I was going through all these job interviews, and when I decided to go to CLC, Collegiate Licensing Company, I jumped all in. I thought, this is a great opportunity, a young environment, young student athletes. This is where I need to be. But I realized the job wasn't a good fit for me. And luckily, a guy who I had been interviewing with all along, who was just slower in the process and ended up being a tremendous mentor for me, finally offered me a job 3 months later. And I made the very tough decision to leave CLC and to go work for him at a company called Action Sports Media. And Paul Allen owned this company called Action Sports Media. We installed video boards in football stadiums across the country, and we sold sponsorships and created content on those video boards. This is before athletic directors were trying to have the biggest and the baddest, video board in each stadium. They didn't even want to buy them, so this company would install them. And he took me under his wing, and I fell in love with the business. I fell in love with tying brands to sports. I had a taste of it at the Bowl. I was not doing anything really in that space necessarily at CLC, even though they do a tremendous job with that. That wasn't the division of the company I was in. And I had this chance to take on this role, and again, became another molding pivotal moment in my career, because that's where I learned the majority of the things that I know about sports, the sports business. And again, part of the whole full circle of the industry, any industry that you're in, is smaller than you think. But the guy who ended up buying Action Sports Media that I was working for at the time is literally now my business partner in trenches today, 15, 16 years later. And if it wasn't for that and the way that I left that company and handled it, the way that I re-engaged with him when I was building trenches, I didn't burn those bridges. And he was willing to listen and to hear my vision for what trenches is going to be. And I had some great stops along the way with some incredible bosses. I got a chance to work in the NBA and the NHL. I got a chance to work in, college athletics, which is truly my passion. And then I got to do another project that I could talk more about, but ultimately was another moment in my life where my passion and my profession came together. So all of those things were stair steps leading me to trenches. And I never had an entrepreneurial itch, but I had great mentors along the way who coached me and taught me and told me that I could do this. And that was what got me there.
Yeah, and I think, again, the importance of mentors and listening to them. But then, too, I think the relation between entrepreneurship and athletics, the entrepreneurial mindset and the athlete mindset seem to be very intertwined, just kind of reflecting back on your own athletic career and thinking about the things that you did and how you had to be self-motivated and disciplined and determined, and then how all of those same traits carry over into starting your own business. I mean, it's kind of cool how that works in tandem. And then too, of course, having those mentors and leaders in your life call that out in you, and so leading you through that. And so then for you, Brad, for when Trenches started to take shape, what is Trenches and what prompted you to start this business?
Well, I had the chance to work on, as I mentioned, moving the College Football Hall of Fame from South Bend, Indiana to Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And we started that project in 2010. So I started on that original team. I was the second employee on that team here in Atlanta. And it was truly the point where my passion and my profession intersected. It was the most rewarding thing I've had a chance to do. It was the most challenging thing I've ever had a chance to do. But I got a chance to be a part of telling the story of the student athlete and hearing the stories of legendary football players and how all of it comes back to those things that you and I just spent the last few minutes talking about. So I had the opportunity to listen to these legends talk about their journey as student athletes. And again, it just showed how important these games that we play are in the development of professionals and the development of leaders. And you hear the stories of, former U.S. presidents who played college football and entrepreneurs. You listen to the CEO of GE tell the story about how he daydreams about his days at Dartmouth. Those are the kinds of things that I fell in love with. And the College Football Hall of Fame project for me was incredible. It was, again, where my passion and my profession intersected. And it was that gave me the idea that there were other, cultural institutions, attractions, museums, who could potentially use the services that I had provided as the Chief Revenue Officer of the College Football Hall of Fame. So I started to think through the idea of how could I do this and what's my timeline at the Hall of Fame, and then decided after talking with a couple close friends, mentors, my wife, decided to pull the trigger and decided to jump in to take Trenches on. So a couple things. One, Trenches was a name that came about because while I was having those conversations, I asked the question, what do you think of me? Like, what is it that you think of when you see me, when you talk to me? And it always came back around to being an offensive lineman that, and this is their words, not mine, but, trying to be a leader, being a doer, getting the job done in the mud and the muck, rolling up my sleeves, not looking necessarily for all of the accolades, working as a team, all of these things that, us O-linemen take great pride in as being O-linemen, right? Nobody recognizes an offensive lineman until there's a holding penalty and a yellow flag flying through the air. But I realized that was my mentality of business too. It wasn't just from being an athlete. So my buddy, a good friend of mine, came up with the idea. He's like, you know what, you should be in the trenches or just trench. I was like, we were like, just trenches. So it became Trenches. And our motto is to work with great people, our teammates, to, let our clients be the superstar quarterbacks, our quarterback, our running backs, our wide receivers, to just do our job and to do it well so that they're successful. And that's what is our corporate culture. That's the environment, the mission and the vision that we built for what Trenches was going to become. So we started working in that space with museums and attractions and sports and entertainment venues. Our core business is that we are a marketing and sales agency for these properties. We consult with different sports and entertainment properties, stadiums, teams, et cetera, and we help them understand their marketing programs and how we can monetize those by connecting them with brands as sponsors, utilizing the assets that they already have in place, helping them strengthen their value proposition if necessary, and helping them realize that, there's more paths to be beaten and more doors to be knocked on. We try to help them connect with those brands. Now, we've evolved into two key verticals. Our main vertical is that we sell naming rights in the collegiate athletic space. So we run searches for athletic departments, selling naming rights to the buildings that we've all played in. And then the other vertical is that we're really focused on other unique and premier assets that can be sponsored. A jersey patch, a concourse entitlement, a bowl game entitlement, those kinds of things that allow brands to reach fans in such a unique way. So those are the two key things. And we also have a digital section, a digital version of our business where we focus on what we kind of consider distributing that sponsorship, helping brands take that content that they're creating through sponsorship through digital media and extending it beyond the owned and operated sites. So we're working every day with incredible properties. The naming rights piece, we're working at everything from Major League Fishing to the Harlem Globetrotters, from the Carolina Panthers to the Chicago Fire of the MLS, and even high school sports. So for us, it is truly a well-rounded picture of the opportunities that sports provide to reach fans and consumers. We've also got some stuff we do in music as well, which gives us the entertainment piece. But that's Trenches, and that's what I wake up every day, thanking the Lord that I get the chance to do it, because it's something a little different every day. I'm never bored. It's sure as hell hard, but I love it. Absolutely love it.
And that's such a beautiful thing. The idea that you get to wake up every day and you do the thing that you truly love. Like you said a little while ago, you fell in love with tying brands to sports and then just catapulting yourself off of that love and that passion to create Trenches and what it is today. And so Brad, now looking back and like you said, you get to do these different things every day, and you have this arm in music and you have this arm obviously in college sports and different sports avenues. So for you, where do you see Trenches growing? Is it just kind of as opportunities come up? Maybe if it's something you never even thought about before, kind of pursuing that, walking through those doors, or do you have a very clear vision of where you want Trenches to go from here?
Great question. And I think every entrepreneur needs to understand that there's all kinds of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
And without a plan, you could get lost. You could get sidetracked. You could, leave that initial vision and passion or that niche that you were trying to fill. And there's opportunity in that as well, right? So we look at it, we believe we have a very firm plan on where we're headed. Sticking with those two verticals that I mentioned, that's our future. We're never going to be a big shop. There are plenty of large agencies out there who do what we do and do it incredibly well. We'll be a small shop with, no less than 5-10 people at the max. The goal for us is to continue to do what we love, to make money along the way. And, maybe someday we're absorbed by one of those bigger shops. Who knows? That's the entrepreneurial vision of, being bought out, right, and making all that glorious money. But for me, even if that happens, I probably see myself doing this again. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. At no point in my career leading up to maybe 6 months before I started Trenches in 2016 did I think I would be doing this. And I'm so glad that I did. It's kind of like, those big moments in my life. I'm glad that I made the decision that I made and that people helped me along the way. That has allowed me to be nimble and pivot. As an offensive lineman, being nimble is not something that I've done well, but I'm trying to do that in business. And I'm trying to continue to forge our plan ahead. Like the Trenches Digital is a new venture for us. It was not something I had originally planned, but it is something that we're going to continue to build on. And who knows what the next thing is. We're working on everything from iRacing right now in the virtual environment with this pandemic going on to virtual music festivals streaming across YouTube. I never in a million years thought I'd be doing either of those things. So I'm excited that we're doing it. I'm excited for those things that are going to come around the corner. And we're trying to stick true to our plan while also knowing that some opportunities will knock from time to time, and we want to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, one, like you said, having that clear vision, but then two, being prepared for whatever is to come, like a global pandemic. That's obviously not something that was prepared for, but it's now you are pivoting. You are figuring out how you can morph Trenches to kind of navigate this next side of the business that kind of came up. And so then, Brad, for you too, coming out of this, you started your Biz Dads podcast. So was this something that you saw coming in tandem with Trenches? Is this just kind of a side, fun, passion project? How did Biz Dads come up?
So Biz Dads was something that I had talked about with a couple different buddies of mine for years. And the original iteration of it never made it to air. We had a couple versions that we recorded and realized probably didn't work. And at that point, we're going to make it very specific to our business. When this pandemic hit, I had no excuse not to do it. Yeah. And I had all the stuff. I just needed to get down in my basement, and I needed to talk with that buddy who I had talked with for years about it. And we decided to kick it off. And for us, it's called Biz Dads. It's a podcast focused on being a working dad who's an entrepreneur and a community, a leader and coach and all of that. But it's not just about being a dad. We don't want to alienate moms. We don't want to alienate, younger professionals. We hope that there's some content for each of them. And we hope they get a chance to listen to, a couple, at this point, a couple older guys, tell our life stories. And we talk about, last night we talked about leadership and entrepreneurship, actually, as two of our main topics. Those are things that we're going to focus on. Biz Dads became, it became a reality because of this pandemic, but I see us continuing it on for as long as people will listen and as long as, we can babble and argue and go back and forth telling stories, and our wives don't shut us down or our kids don't get wise to what we're saying as they get older. I'm sure as they get into high school, they're probably not going to like Biz Dads a whole lot. Who knows? But look, man, there's a lot of like this. You're doing such an amazing job helping people understand the opportunities that are out there, the challenges other people have faced. And it's the same thing for us. If we can help a dad, by making him laugh, if we can help a mom understand a dad, if we can help a young professional, learn a thing or two about business, that's why we're doing it. And we're not better at it than anybody. We just love talking about the things and sharing our kind of little personal things from our life that are funny and fun and educational along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's just putting something out there. And I love what you said, how you didn't have an excuse now. All the excuses kind of went out the window, that you're at home and you get the opportunity to now launch this thing that you've been planning for years. And so it's that first thing where the first episode, it's it's like that phrase in entrepreneurship, if you don't hate your first product, then you launch too late. So it's like, if you don't, at some point, if you listen to your first episode and you're like, man, look how far I've come, look how much better this episode is today. I mean, it's just putting something out there, having that courage to say, I'm just throwing it out there, and I hope somebody listens, and I hope this helps somebody. And so, Brad, for you then, of course, Biz Dads was, like you said, this side passion, something you thought about for a while, putting out there. Do you see now, maybe it's kind of morphing, having, you guys have just started the Biz Dads podcast. Do you see it somehow working in tandem with Trenches and with everything that you guys are doing there? Do you see coming up with, if you have like more of a online, like podcasting, vlogging department, or what do you see any kind of connection yet? Or is it really just kind of two wholly separate things right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it has been something that Trenches has taken on. Our team is working on. We've got a great team that's helping build it out, because the payoff for Trenches is that we are able to position ourselves in the sports and entertainment business, and as entrepreneurs, as thought leaders. As I get asked to do, podcasts or TV shows or panel discussions, speaking engagements and conferences, those kind of things, that's what I want people to know about me. The things that we talk about in the podcast, that I apply everything from my collegiate athletic career to my parenting and marriage to my profession, and that they're not compartmentalized, that all of those things somehow intertwine with the other. So this isn't a project that's just as important to Trenches as it is to me personally. It's just a fun thing to do. Hopefully something comes out of it. Hopefully business comes out of it. So I hope it's something that ultimately helps our business. I don't know. I think it probably will. I don't think it'll hurt our business. Of course, we have to be careful in what we say and make sure that we're always professional. But
right.
The goal here with me and my partner on it is that we want people to know the kinds of people that are going to be calling on them and the kinds of people that are going to be working with. Going back to the initial mission of Trenches, I mean, we want to work with good people doing good things, and hopefully people will get a chance to learn a little about us and the good things that we're doing or trying to do by raising, model citizens. I never thought I'd say that about my kids, or or just, trying to help on the ball field or on scouts, whatever it may be. That's what makes it fun, and hopefully that's what pays off for Trenches in the long run and my partner's business. And we'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the thing, is you never know. And so it's just starting to put stuff out there, and then along the way, maybe figuring it out or seeing how those align. But like you said, it's you want to work with good people doing good things. So as long as you're sticking true to that true north that you have and following that, then everything, the content, everything you put out there, they're all going to be aligned. And then maybe somewhere down the road, it all converges and comes together in is the way that you never imagined possible.
Exactly right. Yeah. That's our goal.
Yeah. And so, Brad, I mean, so now reflecting back on this awesome journey that you've led, I mean, from athletics to your just getting in your foot in the door in the workforce, becoming an entrepreneur, and now looking forward with Biz Dads and growing Trenches to everything that it could possibly become and continuing to inspire people. I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Great question. Number one is I want to be remembered for being a great dad and husband. That's the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
I want to be remembered for taking a unique and creative approach to our business, that I have empathy and understanding, appreciation for other people. I want to be remembered for building something that is all of those things. I hope Trenches one day becomes a business that just people will continue to respect and admire and try to, model afterwards. I also want to be remembered as a guy who was helpful, both in the community and, to other professionals, young professionals. And ultimately for me, it's just, do they look at him and do they think about me and say, he's a good guy? And, I love the Drew Breeses of the world as an example. Drew Brees breaks the all-time passing record, and he runs over to his kids, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "See, boys, I told you If you put your mind to it, anything is possible. And in the moment where that guy is in front of the entire world, he hugs his kids, he hugs his wife, and he has a parenting lesson. And I think that's what I want to be remembered for, is a guy who just tried to do things the right way and tried to help along the way. Was a good friend and had fun, because I love what I do. I think if we all just kind of have that level of sympathy and understanding and tried to help each other, we'd be in a lot better place.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.